Good morning, ZO 150 students. I am so happy to be chatting again and starting our second week of online learning. I think you guys rocked it last week. It was really nice to see our discussion board become a place of conversation, and I loved catching up with you all via telephone conference. I have to apologize in advance for my still froggy voice. I'm hoping that by Wednesday, when you will be receiving another video from me, that my voice will be fully recovered. So to outline what's going to happen in this video, I'm going to walk you through how our peer review is going to go on Wednesday. Between Monday and Wednesday, it'll be due Wednesday by a minute short of midnight. And you should listen up for the second part of Wednesday's post, which will not be posted on the discussion forum, but rather will be detailed here online. So first of all, I thought I would spend a couple of moments just recalling some really important places for you to know about on your Canvas page. So just as a reminder, here's the access to the View Reader, the access to the JTC, and here is a place where you can post questions. Now, if I go back to modules, I want to remind us that A2 resources, scroll, is a really important place for you to know. It has, for example, the hierarchy of rhetorical concerns and the grading guide. And this will be essential that you reference when you're doing your peer review, because I would like you to use words like purpose and focus, development for the audience, genre conventions and organizations, style and mechanics. These are all the conversation that sort of gives us a universal language. And I'm going to apply that to Raven Pinto's essay in just a moment. But this is a really important document. And in order to earn full points on your peer review, my expectation is that you have a close relationship with this hierarchy and that you're applying the hierarchy correctly to your peers' papers. Second thing I'd like to point out here is this PowerPoint, Week 8 Audience Development Fallacies and Scholarly Articles. This has the slides on evidence sandwiches, which is something that Raven Pinto does really, really well and is the work of A2, really. It's the development. It's how you make a unique argument. You'll remember on the hierarchy of rhetorical concerns, there's does the argument expand the conversation on the issue by offering a unique argument? Now, my colleagues and I went back and forth on whether to include the word unique, but ultimately we decided that by picking a specific stakeholder and by placing the evidence in context for the stakeholder, you are able to harness a unique argument by being specific in the way that you use the evidence and relate it back to your stakeholder audience. Okay, so I want to talk through how this week is going to work. Today by midnight, this is Monday, by 1 minute shy of midnight, you will post your draft. At which point, let me show you where you're going to post your draft. Oops, let me go back here. Scroll up. I'm going to get to discussion. So by 1 minute shy of midnight, you are going to post your draft as a Word document to this discussion board. Once you have done so, you're going to look down to see your classmates who have posted, and you're going to call, meaning like reserve, two of your classmates' documents to review by commenting, I will review your A2 or I will review your essay. This is so that we avoid 17 people just reviewing, the first essay that comes along. Oops. Sorry, I went off board here for a moment. There we go. And this is so that everyone in theory gets 2 essays, like 2 reviews, and participates in 2 reviews. What you're going to do is you're going to download your friend's documents. Oh, let me add a caveat. You should only comment, I will review your essay, on somebody who has 0 or 1 comments already, but make sure before we start doubling up that everyone has gotten somebody to reserve his or her essay, okay? So you'll download their essay and you'll pull up the hierarchy of rhetorical concerns, and how you're going to make comments is under this feature called Review. This is in Word. I could add a new comment here like, oh, I'm wondering, to help develop this argument, if you might put the evidence in context for your stakeholder audience. How does document relate to their values? Something like that. You'll notice that I'm adding marginal comments, I'm using complete sentences, and I'm using the language of the hierarchy, development, which relates to evidence and it relates to the audience. And I'm retaining kind of an appropriate, respectful tone by wondering at the choices the writer is making, not dictating choices that the writer should make. So you are going to make a series of marginal comments. That's all the stuff that you would put, highlight something in their document and then add a new comment. And at the end of it, you are going to offer a summary comment in which you pick the 2 places that you think are most important for the writer to focus on for their edits before A2 is due officially on Monday, April 6th. My expectation is that you be specific in your summary comments and that you recall that the hierarchy of rhetorical concerns dictates which areas should come first in terms of importance. If their thesis is not clear, if their paper is sort of wandering places, or you can't track topic sentences, and I'll show you how Raven Pinto does that well, for example, in most cases. That this would be something that you would comment on before, like, you have a ton of run-on sentences. Now, that's not to say to not comment on grammar, but you might, but only to the level of distraction. Like if there are tons of run-on sentences or it's hard to follow the train of logic because of grammar, then certainly that would be worthy of a comment. And I'm going to remind you that the Writing Center is doing drop-in hours on this time. They are not editing services, but it is a place that you can go to sort of work through some of those issues. Okay, so that is what is going to happen. And then by Wednesday, you will upload you're going to save their peer-reviewed document as a Word document on your own computer, and then you're going to re-upload them to Monday's discussion post as a reply to the original poster. I will be grading your peer reviews, which will count both as your attendance, but also as part of your workshop grade. So I'm going to be looking at the kinds of comments that you have made to your peers. Now, the second part of your homework for Wednesday is on Wednesday's post. Here we go. You are going to address in about 150 to 200 words how the experience of peer review went for you. Were there aspects that were more challenging to complete remotely? Were there aspects that were better to complete remotely? I have definitely heard from some students that they prefer online peer review, that they find it a little bit more easy, to be honest. So I want you to address that question as well as offer suggestions for what will happen the next round of peer review. And here, post the thing I asked you to post in Monday's video. Remember to keep it PG-13. I'm going to ask you to post a PG-13 or under meme about how you're feeling about this week. So, give us a glimpse into either how you've been spending your time or how you're feeling about things. Maybe give us a laugh. Post a meme to this discussion board, okay? Okay, so now let's take a look at Raven Pinto's essay. And I agreed largely with the kinds of feedback that you all were leaving on the discussion board. This is social, oops, I have to go back to page 289. Let me see if I can find it. Hold the phone. So here is Raven Pinto's essay. And I'm going to say that overall, I think this is an excellent essay. That's why we gave it as a student example and made it into the Few Reader. This is a student example on food waste bans. And I'm going to point out some things that I think she does really, really well. First of all, she offers some background. that is key for the audience to understand before they sort of grapple with her argument. And at the very end of that first paragraph here, therefore, state governments and policymakers who have not already enacted a food waste policy need to consider the evidential benefits of those policies and take action, not only for the sake of reconciling America's towering waste contribution, but for the additional sake of its own citizens, environment, and business economy. Adopting a food waste ban that positively expends all other options for food donation over the landfill is the best choice a state government can make for all affected sectors. So a couple of things. She identifies her stakeholder very clearly, state governments and policymakers, especially those who have not already enacted a food waste policy. And she's making her argument debatable by offering that it is the best choice. Adopting a food waste ban policy is the best choice. That kind of language takes it into the realm of debatable. And she helps indicate to the audience the way that her argument is going to flow. She's putting into her thesis some of the reasons why they ought to enact a food waste policy. To first address the towering waste contribution for the sake of its citizens, the environment, and business economy. So really well done in terms of purpose and focus, and she retains that purpose and focus throughout. Now in this whole paragraph, I will discuss the statistical findings of both the Food and Agriculture Organization and the United Nations Environmental Program before arguing the benefits of food waste policies. Here she is establishing both exigence and she is giving appropriate background information for the stakeholder. Throughout her essay, she uses, I would say, a high level of diction in order to appeal to her audience. She's making an appeal to an audience that is very educated, that has power. So she's sounding pretty official here, even with the use of I, which I would argue emphasizes her ethos. Now, I'm going to give you a good example of an evidence sandwich. Okay, here. According to the graph provided in the FAO's key finding article, the biggest state contributors of global food waste are North America, Europe, etc. Nearly 40% of all food supply within the United States goes to waste and typically ends up in landfill. That's something that she has pulled from her research. There's the evidence. Now she's putting it in context. To grasp the significance of this statistic, the UNEP stated that the peaking 2.3 billion tons of food wasted annually could cover nearly the entire net food production. This amount, here's her particular analysis, is unnecessarily large and inexcusable for the United States, as food waste ban policies are already gaining momentum in smaller countries. Therefore, not only is it necessary, it is also an exigent moral duty. There you go, applying to pathos and establishing the exigence. Throughout her essay, she uses evidence extremely well. She uses evidence sandwiches. In general, she has pretty good topic sentences. For example, keeping food waste out of landfills due to policy requirements of food donation is especially accommodating to the environment as it is to the American people. There she goes. She addresses both the citizen concerns and the environment, which she indicated in her thesis. Now, when we get to here, I would say her topic sentence needs a little work. And if I were to give her some feedback, like overall on her essay, I'm not going to work through each nitty-gritty place, but she uses, in general, logos, pathos, and ethos very well. I'll point out logos at the end. If I were to give her feedback, though, I would say let's work the connections between the paragraphs a little bit more to help develop the track of the argument for your audience. Particularly as you transition to this paragraph. Now, I want to point out places because there was a couple of comments that she wasn't using logos very well. And I would say that, let me find the particular paragraph. Yeah, because she employs a lot of pathos. But where I see logos happening particularly or explicitly, though it's used sort of tacitly throughout, is here. I would finally like to reveal the inevitability of my argument. It is that food waste bans are gaining momentum across the United States already, and any state government hesitant to join the job will eventually be able to observe the widespread success of neighboring states. So overall, I think Raven Pinto's essay is a great example for you to look at for structure, to look at how she uses evidence sandwiches, and I would encourage you to use her essay as well as a hierarchy when giving peer review feedback. Thank you.